Hi, I'm Jim and I was retired. Are you trapped in a non-qualified annuity and can't get out? Well, this week I'm going to show you how we made an escape from the annuity maze. This is a complex story I'm going to tell you, and I want to preface it by saying this is just my example, and I'm sharing my ideas with you. But one of the dilemmas that we had in our retirement pie was that we had this non-qualified annuity, and it began its life as a bank CD, and then the bank politely convinced us to buy a non-qualified annuity as a better CD. Well, once you get trapped into it, you have to keep it there to avoid surrender charges. And you learn that non-qualified annuities are not CDs. Let's begin with a little bit of background on annuities, and particularly the two kinds of annuities, qualified annuities and non-qualified. I'm going to start with qualified annuities. They use pre-tax dollars to fund the annuity. And I did have one of these that I talked about before with my pension purchase option. I took pre-tax dollars and traded them in for a qualified annuity. And I did that with the understanding that all withdrawals are taxed as ordinary income anyway. And in this way, it's very similar to your tax-deferred accounts, your 401ks and your IRAs. The big difference, though, is that with annuities, there's no option to convert into a Roth account. You are trapped in that tax-deferred status with you're going to get taxed at ordinary income when it comes out. That's a qualified annuity, and they have their role if you want a fixed income for the rest of your retirement. They can be a good deal as long as you understand that you're going to be taxed at ordinary income tax rates on all of the income coming to you through your retirement. Now, non-qualified annuities, on the other hand, are purchased with after-tax dollars. And therefore, the cash that you use to purchase it will not be taxed when it comes out, but any gains are taxed at ordinary income tax rates. And there is no Roth option. There is no Roth way out of these things to convert some of your money into a Roth that's tax-free. You're going to pay an ordinary income tax on that gain when it comes out. You should also know that annuities are complex and they have surrender charges and fees built into them. 8 to 10 years worth of keeping it in place so that you pay the commission on the product and don't escape too soon. So you have to be aware of that. You also have to be aware that the federal government will impose a 10% penalty on any withdrawals from an annuity before the age of 59 and a half. So that's another big difference between this and a CD, by the way. And you also understand that they're complex contracts. Insurance companies are administered at a state level, and these things can be very different from one insurance company in one state to the next. You need to understand the complex contracts. With a non-qualified annuity, there are really only three ways to get out of the contract. One is a withdrawal or surrender of the policy, partial or complete. And if you incur the surrender charges, that's deducted from what you can get out of it. You can do a 1035 exchange of an annuity into another annuity, but that's essentially just kicking the can down the road. And the third way is annuitization, a lifetime or certain term payout. You might, for instance, do a single life payout or a joint life payout. And if it's a joint life, it's going to pay as long as the two people are alive and then no more. If it's a certain term period, like a 20-year period, it's going to pay out for 20 years. So facing that dilemma, what do we do with this non-qualified annuity? Do we do one of those options? Which is the best? Which is the best way of getting the money out at the best tax rate? One of the things I'm thinking about is that we're currently in a low tax bracket era, where that's when we're thinking about Roth conversions, for instance. So would it make sense to surrender this policy this year as opposed to later years? So that's what I'm going to look at. I'm going to take an example uh, annuity that's similar to our circumstance, but I'm going to round the dollars to make the illustration a little bit easier to understand. Suppose you have a non-qualified annuity and you put $100,000 into it, and now 10 years later, it's grown another $52,000 in gain on the annuity. So you have $152,000 in accumulated value in this annuity. Now you're not taxed on that 100,000. You're only taxed on that $52,000 of gain on the annuity. Annuities have a different tax treatment than life insurance. Life insurance, you could take your gain out later. You could take your premium out first. But annuities have something called last in, first out, LIFO. And that means any withdrawals, partial withdrawals you take would be out of the gain and not the principal that you put into the product. And that definitely influenced my decisions on what to do with this $152,000 annuity here. If we take it in a low tax bracket, while we're at 12%, for instance, that $52,000 gain would be taxed at 12%. So that would be about $6,240 in taxes due. And that would net us about $145,760 by surrendering it if we're in the 12% tax bracket. But suppose we do a couple Roth conversions and we work our way into the 22% tax bracket. Well, in that circumstances, the $52,000 gain at 22% tax bracket would be about $11,440 in taxes due, and that would net us about $140,560 if we surrendered the policy this year and we're in the 22% tax bracket. Now, how does that compare if we do an annuitization? Well, here's something else to keep in mind. You take that 100,000 you first put into it and divide it by the accumulated value of 152,000, and that gives you a 65.8% tax ratio. And that's an important concept. That means that 65.8% of the payout will be tax-free, but you'll be taxed on the balance. Now, suppose you took, for instance, $850 a month annuitization for the next 20 years. That would mean that $559.30 each month would be excluded from taxation, but $290.70 a month would be taxable. That's the tax ratio in a annuitization out of a non-qualified annuity. What if we did that for 20 years? Well, I plotted that in a graph, and I decided that we would start at 12%, go to 22%, go to 25%, and then go to 28%. And over 20 years, we would have paid $16,959 in taxes. So paying taxes over the 20 years would end up costing us more. And therefore, it leads me to believe that the best decision to escape this annuity maze is to surrender the whole policy now, pay the tax on the gain, and then redeploy into our bucket strategy for retirement. Hey, I should note that as CD rates start to come down, you may see banks offering you a non-qualified annuity as a better CD. Don't fall for it unless you're sure you want to go into that kind of contract. Read it very carefully. I'll also say that I am not a life insurance agent. I am not an accountant, so make sure you do your own due diligence on annuities. I'm going to put some links below on some articles that I've read about annuities this week. See if they help. Hey, please like and subscribe to this channel if you like entertaining ideas from a DIY retiree. I'm not selling you a course. I'm simply sharing my perspectives to help you prepare for your own DIY retirement. I am curious, so if you got into a non-qualified annuity, how did you get out? Put some notes in that comments below. Let me know how you escaped an annuity maze. And I will conclude with my standard warning. I am not a financial planner. I have no initials after my name. So take these as entertaining ideas from one educated consumer to another. Always do your own due diligence and seek out a professional if you need one.